Snoop Dogg goes undercover as a homeless man. What happens next will shock you. Watch as Snoop Dogg, disguised as a homeless man, exposes police bias in Central Park. The interaction that unfolds is both chilling and eye-opening. This social experiment is making waves and raising serious questions. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. The park was quiet that afternoon, the only sounds coming from the rustling leaves and the distant hum of city traffic. Snoop sat alone on a worn-out blue bench near the fountain, his hood pulled low, his coat tattered and frayed like it hadn't been washed in years. A crumpled brown paper bag rested beside him, and his mismatched sneakers peeked out from beneath his jeans, scuffed and faded. He looked apart. A police cruiser rolled into the parking lot, moving slowly, deliberately. Two officers stepped out, their boots crunching against the gravel as they scanned the area. One of them, Officer Martinez, was young, sharp-jawed, and eager, his buzz cut barely shifting in the afternoon breeze. His badge gleamed under the sun as he adjusted his belt and exchanged a glance with his partner, Officer Higgins, a stocky, middle-aged cop whose uniform bore the telltale stains of too many rushed coffee breaks. Another vagrant, Martinez muttered, nodding toward Snoop. This park is turning into a damn shelter. Higgins sighed, sounding tired. Let's see what he's up to. Maybe he's harmless. Their footsteps grew louder as they approached. Snoop didn't react, his gaze fixed on the ground, unmoving. You can't sit here all day, Martinez said sharply, his tone clipped and authoritative. This is a public park, not your living room. Snoop finally lifted his head, his eyes shadowed under the hood. He didn't say a word, just reached into the paper bag beside him. Martinez tensed instantly, his hand hovering near his baton. Easy, Higgins murmured, though his voice lacked conviction. Snoop pulled out a sandwich wrapped in wax paper and slowly unwrapped it. No sudden moves, nothing threatening, just a man about to eat his lunch. He took a bite, chewing quietly as if the officers weren't even there. You hear me? Martinez snapped, stepping closer. I said you can't just sit here all day. You got somewhere to be? Snoop swallowed, his eyes flicking up briefly before returning to his sandwich. His voice was calm but firm. I'm not bothering anyone. Just eating my lunch. That's not the point, Martinez shot back, his tone growing harsher. People like you make this place look bad. You scare off families, tourists. Higgins exhaled slowly, crossing his arms. What's your name? Snoop hesitated, fingers tightening slightly on the sandwich. Then, he answered, Calvin. Calvin brought us? Martinez smirked, unimpressed. What, you a rapper or something? Snoop didn't respond. Just took another bite, unbothered. But that silence, it got under Martinez's skin. Let me see some ID, he demanded, stepping closer, looming. Snoop set his sandwich down, reached into his coat, and pulled out a worn leather wallet. Martinez flipped it open, scanning the ID. It looked legit, but the man sitting in front of him looked nothing like the Calvin Broadus he was expecting. He frowned but handed it back. What are you even doing here, Broadus? Why aren't you in a shelter? I like the fresh air, Snoop replied, simple and steady. That a crime? Higgins shifted, uneasy. He's not doing anything illegal, he muttered to his partner. We can't just kick him out. Maybe not, Martinez said, eyes narrowing. But we can make it uncomfortable for him. The tension crackled, thick in the air. A few passers-by slowed their steps, sensing something brewing. Hey, a woman walking her dog called out, hesitant but firm. He's not hurting anyone. Why are you bothering him? Martinez turned, his face hardening. Ma'am, this is none of your concern. It's a public park, she shot back. He has the right to be here, same as anyone else. Higgins raised a placating hand. Ma'am, we're just doing our job. Please, move along. The woman hesitated, gripping her dog's leash tighter, looking between Snoop and the officers. Then, with a shake of her head, she walked off, muttering under her breath. Snoop watched her go, a flicker of something, amusement, annoyance, passing across his face. Then, he picked up his sandwich again, taking another slow, deliberate bite. The camera kept rolling. Snoop Dogg's undercover social experiment, what happens next will leave you speechless. Disguised as a homeless man, Snoop Dogg exposes shocking police bias in Central Park. What starts as a routine encounter quickly turns into something much deeper, raising questions that can't be ignored. Watch the full interaction, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Snoop brushed the crumbs from his lap, his posture still relaxed, but there was a subtle edge in his voice as he spoke. "Am I free to go?" Officer Higgins shifted uncomfortably. "You're not under arrest," he admitted, though his partner shot him a sharp glance. "But you might want to find somewhere else to sit." Snoop nodded slowly, letting his gaze linger on Officer Martinez a second too long before rising to his feet. As he adjusted the hood of his coat, a loose lock of dark hair fell across his forehead. He was taller than they had realized, imposing in a way that hadn't been obvious when he was sitting. "Have a nice day," he said, his voice low, deliberate. Martinez's jaw clenched as he watched him go. "Did you see the way he looked at me?" he muttered. "Dude thinks he's better than us." "Let it go," Higgins replied with a tired sigh. "He's not worth the paperwork." As Snoop walked away, his steps slow and measured, the tension in the park began to dissipate. But something lingered, an unspoken challenge, a quiet defiance that hadn't been extinguished. Martinez stared after him, his expression darkening. "I don't trust him," he said finally. "There's something off about that guy." "You don't have to trust him," Higgins muttered. "You just have to leave him alone." Snoop disappeared down the winding path, the crumpled paper bag still tucked under his arm. But as he rounded the corner, a faint smile ghosted across his lips. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Back at the patrol car, Martinez muttered under his breath, still fixated on the retreating figure. "I'm telling you, something's not right," he said. "That ID looked real, sure. But who carries a wallet like that dressed like that? And what's he even doing in this park?" Higgins shrugged, already turning toward the cruiser. "Not our problem. We're not here to solve riddles. We're here to keep the peace." But Martinez wasn't ready to let it go. His mind worked through the details, piecing together what had unsettled him, the way Snoop had spoken, calm and deliberate, like a man who wasn't afraid. The way he had sized them up with a single glance. The way he had walked away, shoulders squared, unshaken, like someone who was used to being in control. "He's hiding something," Martinez muttered, climbing into the cruiser, his jaw tight. His partner sighed but didn't argue. He knew better than to waste energy on what he saw as rookie paranoia. Meanwhile, Snoop had found a quieter spot in the park, settling onto another bench beneath a cluster of old oak trees. The paper bag sat beside him again, untouched. He leaned back, closing his eyes, his expression unreadable, but there was something purposeful in his posture. Like a man waiting for something. Or someone. It didn't take long before his solitude was disturbed. A pair of joggers approached, their sneakers crunching against the gravel. As they passed, their conversation faltered. The man, middle-aged and decked out with a sleek fitness tracker, nudged his companion, muttering under his breath. The woman's expression tightened. "Should we call someone?" she whispered, just loud enough for Snoop to hear. "He looks sketchy." Snoop opened his eyes, his gaze flicking to the joggers, then up toward the sky. He said nothing. No reaction. But the air around them thickened. The joggers exchanged uneasy glances before quickening their pace, their footsteps fading into the distance. It wasn't long before the next interruption came. A group of teenagers on bikes, their laughter loud and reckless, zigzagged between the trees. One of them spotted Snoop and pulled to a stop, motioning for his friends to follow. "Yo, check this out," the boy grinned, pointing. "You homeless or something?" Snoop didn't respond. His expression remained calm, his eyes holding a quiet detachment as he studied the kid. Emboldened by the silence, the teenager leaned in closer, his grin widening. What happens next? You won't believe it. Snoop Dogg's social experiment takes a dark turn. What happens next will shock you. What started as a quiet afternoon in Central Park is now turning into a tense standoff. Disguised as a homeless man, Snoop Dogg is exposing police bias firsthand, and things are escalating fast. Watch what happens when an officer refuses to back down. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. You lose your house playing Fortnite or what? One of the teenagers sneered, his friends erupting into laughter, their voices a mix of jeers and taunts. One of them pulled out a phone, holding it up to record. Say something for the camera, man, he mocked. Tell us your life story. Snoop finally spoke, his voice low and measured. You should get going, he said, his gaze steady. This isn't a place for games. The teenagers hesitated. The way he said it, calm, controlled, but laced with something unspoken, made them second guess whether this was worth pushing further. But before they could decide, the distant sound of a police cruiser pulling up made the decision for them. They turned just as the squad car rolled to a stop. Officer Martinez stepped out first, his eyes immediately locking onto the group. What's going on here? He called, his tone sharp. Like a pack of startled birds, the teenagers scattered, their bikes kicking up dust as they pedaled away. Martinez barely acknowledged them. His focus was zeroed in on one thing, Snoop, still seated on the bench. You again, he said, striding toward him. Couldn't find another park to loiter in? Snoop didn't move, didn't flinch. His posture remained relaxed as he regarded Martinez with an unreadable expression. Is sitting on a bench against the law now? He asked. Martinez's jaw tightened, frustration creeping into his voice. You've got a smart mouth. Good thing I'm not here to make friends, Snoop replied evenly. Officer Higgins approached, his expression one of mild annoyance as he glanced between the two. Why are we back here? He asked, exasperated. I don't trust him, Martinez muttered, his eyes never leaving Snoop. He's up to something. He's sitting on a bench, Higgins sighed. Let it go. But Martinez wasn't listening. He took another step closer, his hand resting on the baton at his hip. What's in the bag? He demanded. Snoop tilted his head slightly, studying the officer. Lunch, he said. Prove it. Snoop raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. He picked up the paper bag and held it out, letting Martinez peer inside. An apple. A sandwich. A bottle of water. Nothing else. Martinez frowned, suspicion still in his eyes. You got something else on you? Something you don't want us to find? Snoop set the bag down with deliberate ease. I've got nothing to hide, he said, his voice steady. But if you're looking for trouble, I'm not the one you'll find it with. Higgins sighed, already tired of this. Let's go, he said to his partner. We've got better things to do. But Martinez hesitated. Something about this guy, the way he carried himself, the way he didn't break a sweat under pressure, it didn't sit right with him. He didn't know what it was, but he was determined to figure it out. You're awfully calm for someone getting this much attention, Martinez said, his voice low, probing. Most people in your situation would be a little more nervous. Snoop didn't blink. Most people aren't breaking any laws, he replied simply. Are you saying I should be nervous? Martinez took another step forward, his hand still resting on his baton. I'm saying you're acting like you've got nothing to lose, he said, his tone sharpening. And that makes me wonder what you're hiding. I've got nothing to hide, Snoop repeated evenly. You've searched me. You've searched my bag. If you're still looking for something, that's on you. Higgins, still standing by the cruiser, had had enough. Come on, he called over his shoulder. He's not doing anything. Let's move on. But Martinez ignored him. His eyes narrowed as he studied the man in front of him. You've got an answer for everything, don't you? He said, irritation creeping into his voice. You think you're smarter than me? Snoop tilted his head slightly, his gaze unwavering. I'm not trying to prove anything, he said. I'm just sitting on a bench. Martinez took another step, closing the distance between them, the tension thickening. You think you're clever, he muttered. You think you can just sit here and make me look like an idiot? Snoop's voice was quiet, but sharp enough to cut. I think you're making yourself look that way. Higgins turned back sharply. Enough, he said firmly, stepping between them. We're done here. But Martinez wasn't done. No, we're not, he snapped, his frustration boiling over. What happens next? You won't believe it. Stay tuned. Snoop Dogg's social experiment escalates. The police return, but this time it's different. What started as a quiet afternoon in Central Park has turned into something much bigger. Disguised as a homeless man, Snoop Dogg is testing the limits of police bias, and the tension is only rising. Watch what happens when an officer refuses to back down. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. This guy's playing us. I can feel it, Officer Martinez muttered. Feel it all you want, Officer Higgins shot back, his tone sharp. You don't have anything on him. Leave it alone. For a moment, it looked like Martinez might argue, his face tight with frustration, but then he took a step back, his grip on his baton loosening. Fine, he bit out through clenched teeth. We go. Snoop, still seated on the bench, said nothing. Just watched. Silent. Unbothered. The officers turned, walking back toward their cruiser, but just as Martinez reached the door, he hesitated. Something made him glance back. For a brief moment, his eyes met Snoop's. And in that instant, an unspoken challenge passed between them. Inside the cruiser, Higgins shook his head as he started the engine. You've got to let this stuff go, he said, his voice edged with irritation. It's not worth the trouble. Martinez stared out the window, jaw tight. It's not about trouble. It's about respect. He exhaled sharply. That guy thinks he's untouchable. He's not, Higgins sighed, pulling onto the main road. Just let it go. We've got better things to do. But Martinez couldn't let it go. His mind churned, replaying every detail, his unwavering stare, his calm demeanor, the way he acted like he had nothing to fear. Why? Back on the bench, Snoop watched the cruiser disappear, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he reached into the paper bag beside him, pulling out the sandwich he had barely touched earlier. He unwrapped it with careful ease, his gaze flicking briefly toward the cluster of trees nearby. A figure stood there, watching. The man in the gray hoodie stepped forward cautiously, glancing around before stopping just a few feet away. How's it going? He asked, his voice low. Snoop took a bite of his sandwich, chewing thoughtfully. Then, he spoke. About as expected, he said. They're suspicious. But they haven't figured anything out yet. The man in the hoodie nodded, hands tucked deep into his pockets. Think they'll come back? They always do, Snoop said, lips curving into a faint smile. Curiosity gets the better of them. The man hesitated, his brow furrowing. You sure about this? You're pushing them pretty hard. That's the point, Snoop replied simply. I want to see how far they'll go. Nearby, a jogger paused to tie their shoe, their eyes flicking toward the two men before quickly looking away. The man in the hoodie shifted his weight, tension in his posture. Just be careful, he murmured. If this goes sideways. It won't, Snoop interrupted, his voice calm but firm. I've got this. The man in the hoodie steadied him for a moment longer, then gave a small, reluctant nod before slipping back into the trees. Snoop took another bite of his sandwich, gaze drifting back toward the path. And then he heard it. The low hum of a police cruiser. They were back. The sound blended into the rustling leaves, the distant city noise. Snoop didn't move. He stayed seated, his posture relaxed as he finished the last bite of his sandwich. The now empty paper bag rested neatly beside him. But behind that calm exterior, his eyes were sharp, aware. The cruiser rolled to a stop. Before the vehicle had even fully parked, Martinez was already out, moving toward him with brisk, determined steps. Higgins followed at a slower pace, his expression tense, frustration creeping into his features. "You again," Martinez said sharply, his gaze flicking from Snoop's face to the empty bag beside him. "Didn't we just have this conversation?" Snoop looked up, his expression neutral. "We did," he replied evenly. Didn't realize sitting on a bench was grounds for a second visit. Martinez's eyes darkened. "Don't get smart with me," he snapped, his hand resting on his hip. "You're still here. Still acting suspicious. I don't know what your game is, but I'm going to find out." Higgins stepped in, raising a hand. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice firm but low. "We already cleared him." "He's up to something," Martinez insisted, his jaw tight. "I can feel it." Higgins exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple. "That's not how the law works," he said, his patience wearing thin. "You can't just hassle someone because you feel like it." "Then why is he still here?" Martinez shot back, frustration boiling in his voice. "Why hasn't he left? Normal people don't just hang around like this." Snoop's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped a degree. "Normal people," he repeated quietly. "What exactly does that mean?" Martinez clenched his jaw. He took another step forward. "It means people who don't sit around in parks waiting for attention." "Maybe I just like the view," Snoop replied smoothly. "Or maybe," he added, his tone unbothered, "I don't feel like being rushed out of a public space for no reason." Higgins sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "You're escalating this for no reason," he said. "Let it go." But Martinez wasn't listening. He gestured toward Snoop, his frustration reaching its boiling point. "If he's got nothing to hide," he muttered, "then he won't mind answering a few more questions." Snoop tilted his head slightly, his gaze steady. This wasn't over. Snoop Dogg's undercover experiment takes a shocking turn. The police are losing control. What started as a routine police encounter is spiraling into something far more intense. Disguised as a homeless man, Snoop Dogg is pushing the limits of police bias, and now the officers are starting to crack. The more they dig, the more questions arise. Watch as this social experiment takes an unexpected twist. Like, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Snoop sat still, his gaze unwavering. "What do you want to know?" Officer Martinez's eyes narrowed. "Why are you here?" he demanded. "Why this park? Why this bench? Do I need a reason?" Snoop asked, his voice calm, almost amused. "I wasn't aware public spaces came with prerequisites." Martinez clenched his jaw. "What's your deal?" "You're too calm. Too calculated. People don't just sit like this unless they're planning something." "Planning what?" Snoop replied, his tone even. "A picnic? A peaceful afternoon?" His eyes met the officer's. "You tell me what crime I'm committing, and I'll tell you why I'm here." Officer Higgins stepped forward, visibly exhausted by the back and forth. "That's enough," he said, his tone firm. "You've got nothing. Let's move on." But Martinez wasn't ready to let it go. His gut told him there was more. He reached for his radio, pressing the button. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. I need a record check on an individual named Calvin Broadus. ID provided earlier." Snoop raised an eyebrow but remained silent, his face unreadable. The radio crackled. A pause. Then the dispatcher's voice came through. "Copy that, Unit 12. Stand by." Higgins groaned, throwing up his hands. "You're making this into something it's not," he muttered. "This is going to come back on us." "Then he shouldn't have anything to worry about," Martinez shot back, his gaze locked on Snoop. "If he's clean, he's clean." Snoop leaned back slightly, folding his arms. You're very determined, he said. Almost flattering. Don't try to play me, Martinez snapped. You're not as clever as you think you are. Maybe not, Snoop said with a slight shrug. But I don't need to be clever to sit on a bench. Before Martinez could fire back, the radio crackled again. Unit 12, no records found under the name Calvin Broadus matching the provided ID. Silence. Martinez stiffened, gripping the radio tighter. What do you mean, no records? Exactly what it sounds like, the dispatcher replied. No matches in the system. Either the ID is fake or there's an error in the database. Higgins turned to his partner, his face darkening. That's enough. His voice was sharp now. We're not turning this into a witch hunt. Let it go. But Martinez's suspicion had only deepened. His face burned with frustration, his fists clenched at his sides. He's lying, he said, pointing at Snoop. That ID is fake. And he knows it. Snoop's expression remained calm, but there was something there now, a flicker of amusement, maybe. If that's true, he said, then why didn't you spot it earlier? Martinez opened his mouth to respond, but Higgins cut him off. We're done here, Higgins said firmly, gripping his partner's arm and steering him toward the cruiser. Let's go before you make this worse. Martinez hesitated. He didn't want to leave. His gut told him there was more to this. But with Higgins practically dragging him back to the car, he had no choice. This isn't over, he muttered under his breath, slamming the door behind him. Snoop watched the cruiser pull away, his face unreadable. Then, casually, he reached into his coat pocket. A small device rested in his palm. He turned it over between his fingers, a faint smirk playing at the corner of his lips. The game was unfolding exactly as he had planned. But it wasn't over. A few minutes later, the cruiser circled back. Inside, Martinez gripped the wheel, his knuckles white. I know something's off about this guy, he muttered, his eyes scanning the park. Plenty of people are off, Higgins replied, his voice laced with exhaustion. Not everyone's hiding something. Maybe the database just didn't update. Ever think of that? Martinez shook his head. No. There's more to this. The way he talks, the way he moves. He's not just some random guy. He's playing us. And I'm not about to let him get away with it. Get away with what? Higgins snapped, his patience finally wearing thin. Sitting on a bench? Eating a sandwich? You're acting like he's some kind of mastermind. He might be, Martinez muttered. He pulled the car to a stop just near the trees where they'd last seen Snoop. And sure enough, he was still there. Same bench. Same relaxed posture. But something was different. His hood was pushed back slightly now, revealing more of his face. His paper bag was neatly folded beside him, as if to signal that he had finished eating. He looked up as the officers approached, his expression unreadable. You boys missed me already? He asked, his tone calm, but laced with a hint of amusement. Martinez stiffened, his frustration reaching its boiling point. We're not done with you yet, he said sharply, stepping closer. That ID you gave us, it doesn't exist. Care to explain? Snoop raised an eyebrow, his gaze steady. Snoop Dogg's social experiment exposes police bias, the moment that changed everything. Officer Martinez, convinced Snoop was hiding something, kept pushing. Your ID doesn't exist, he said, demanding an explanation. Snoop remained calm. Maybe your system's broken, or maybe you're looking for something that's not there. Frustrated, Martinez called dispatch, but the response was clear, no records found. His suspicion deepened. That ID is fake, he insisted. Snoop only smirked. Then why didn't you spot it earlier? Officer Higgins, now exhausted by the escalating situation, pulled his partner away. We're done here, he said firmly. Martinez, fuming, muttered, this isn't over. But it was. Just not for Martinez. As the police cruiser disappeared, Snoop pulled a small device from his pocket, a faint smirk on his lips. The game was unfolding exactly as planned. Minutes later, the police returned. Martinez stormed toward Snoop. "You're still here," he snapped. "Your ID doesn't exist. Care to explain?" Snoop sighed, reached into his coat, and pulled out a sleek black phone. He tapped the screen, and a video began to play. Martinez leaned in. His face paled. It was him, on camera, harassing Snoop, demanding answers. The audio was crystal clear. "What is this?" he stammered. "A live stream," Snoop said, slipping the phone back into his pocket. "Millions of people have been watching all day." Martinez's face drained of color. "You set me up." "I didn't set you up," Snoop replied. "I gave you a choice. Every action you took was your own." A crowd gathered. News crews arrived. Cameras zoomed in. "This isn't over," Martinez muttered, pointing a shaking finger at Snoop. "It already is," Snoop replied. "The world's watching now." Then, a voice cut through the noise. "Officers, stand down." A woman in a crisp suit approached, Captain Jane Monroe, Internal Affairs. Her expression was cold as she turned to Martinez. "You've made quite a mess," she said. "Hand over your badge and weapon." "What?" Martinez stammered. "You can't be serious." "Do it," she snapped. "You're on administrative leave, pending investigation." The crowd erupted in cheers. Martinez, humiliated, handed over his badge. As he was led away, his career in ruins, Snoop turned to the cameras one last time. "This isn't about one cop," he said. "It's about accountability." The video went viral. The bench where Snoop had sat became a symbol, with people leaving notes reading, "Your story matters." Days later, in Times Square, Snoop addressed the world. "This wasn't about embarrassing anyone," he said. "It was about holding up a mirror to society." And with that, the conversation began.